Moving on here, Aloe Conson, all of our friends are here tonight, says, how would you reverse the growing horde of mewling, sackless beta males poised to become the majority of American men? That's a tough question. We've talked about this before on the Stratosphere Lounge. We're certainly not going to get into the details of this because this is a whole show. In fact, I think I saw it in one of our suggestions, and I want to do this theme show, and maybe we'll do this theme show next week. But the short form is, I think there is an enormous, enormous social need for a kind of a manhood academy. I certainly wouldn't know the first thing about a womanhood academy, but I could run a manhood academy. And so the short answer to your question, Aloe, without getting into all the things we've dredged up before on this topic, since it's about fixing problems, not about the issues so much, is I would start a series of academies, and I'd basically say, hey, listen, for a reasonable amount of money, maybe make it available online, or maybe make it free, who knows. We'll have discussions with your sons about what being a man is and what the benefits are. And one of the things that's so nice about that is it's sort of a kind of a how do I put this? It's a bit contradictory in a way. Because what you really have to teach men, young men, in order to be men, what you have to teach young males in order to be men, is that you're going to have to step up and defend women, and you're going to have to get in the way of them in danger and violence and all these other things. It's a primary thing, really, that men do, is they protect the women and children. That's, to me, the definition of manhood. Definition of manhood is women and children first when it comes to the lifeboats. Somebody just wrote there's already a manhood academy, and I bet they're talking about the U.S. Marine Corps. And certainly joining the military will get this mostly straightened out for you. But I'm talking about civilians. So basically, the strange contradiction is, and no, David Big Boutte, we're not going to talk about those two letters today. The strange contradiction is you have to explain to young men that part of being a man is you have to do these things for women because that's what you do. And at the same time, they would say, and in exchange for this we get. And the answer to that is, in exchange for this you get nothing. Nothing. You don't get leverage. You don't get anything. You have to do it to do it. This is a kind of a theme I've been working with quite a bit lately with conservatives and talking about this whole idea that Russ never sleeps and you have to mow the lawn. There's never a point where, well, I mowed the lawn. I don't have to mow the lawn again. I have to mow the lawn every week if you want a nice lawn, and rust never stops, and you have to paint, and you have to maintain, and all this other stuff. It's just the deal. It's the deal. So you have to explain to young men that when you do these things, you have to do them without expectation of anything in return, because then it's just a transaction, and it can't be a transaction. It has to be an action. With that said, one of the things that we realize, of course, is happening today is that the fourth or fifth or whatever wave of feminist movement that's out there now is not about the right to vote, and it's not about job equality, it's not about equal pay, it's about the destruction of masculinity as its end goal. And it doesn't even make sense anymore. It's not even sensible anymore. It's really just simply to do it because they hate it. And the problem with that is that if they get rid of good men, then they don't get rid of bad men. They just mean that bad men run amok and do whatever they want. So what's unfortunately happening is that every day that goes by, society makes the deal for being a real man worse, makes it a worse deal to be a real man every day. If you don't get, if you get nothing but hectored, and when I say hectored, I don't mean hectored by your wife. I mean, if you get to come home at the end of a long day of toiling and, working and getting up early and staying out late and bringing home the bacon, and you come home and you turn on the TV set, and the only role model you have for yourself is this man-child that you see in every single commercial ever made, this bumbling lunatic idiot where the wife is carefully explaining how to balance a checkbook, or the wife is calling the insurance company because the man has driven the golf cart into the pool, or the wife is calmly speaking to whoever because the father's launched a rocket out of the den and the roof is caved in, and if this is all you ever see, you have to start asking yourself, what's the point? What's in it? We did a Clave and Whittle show yesterday, and I hadn't heard the term before, but the term was sexodus. Sexodus is the idea that large numbers of men are just basically leaving this whole. They're just giving up. They're just saying, you know what, I've got my internet porn and I've got my video games, and that'll do it. Good enough. I don't need any of this crap anymore. One of our producers on the show was on as a host, as a guest rather, and he was saying, yeah, there's no angle in it for men in their late 20s, early 30s. What's the angle? We're gonna be economically, distraught, and we get divorced after 2 years and lose half our money, and all we get is put down, and all we get is just mocked and ridiculed, and it's on and on and on. It's just forget it. It's not worth it. And so all these things have to be taught, and the way you teach them, is you teach them. And there is some good news in this, by the way. And some of the good news is that young boys, I can't speak for girls. I just can't. I'm not trying to exclude them because I don't care about them. I'm not trying to exclude them for any other reason other than I just don't know them. I can't speak for them. I can't talk about that. But I can talk about young boys a little bit. And the good news in all of this is that I think virtually all young boys have a very strong sense of just a real burning desire to hear it. They know it when they see it. They know what strength is. They know what a strong father is. Many boys with either absent dads or alcoholic dads or weak dads or chaotic dads or whatever. Many young men find that need in either football in high school or college. They get it from their coach, or they join the military and they get it from the Corps, from the sergeant, or whatever the case may be. But they want it and they need it, and they have a very highly developed sense for it. And you can talk to young men, young males, I should say, about this stuff, and they get it. They're wired to get it. Of course they get it. They're genetically wired to get it. That's why little boys, when you give them, put them in a room to play, the boys will start looking out the window. The girls usually form little circles and start talking to each other and reading each other's social interactions. The boys are looking out the windows and they want to get out the door, and you can tell them you can't play with guns, but they'll pick up a stick and use it as a gun. They automatically know how to do that. And so the problem becomes, it's not a problem actually. The lever is, the good news is, you can basically say to these young men and boys, this is not only not wrong what you're doing, but it's correct and it's right. Then you need to have conversations with young men about how much stronger they are than women, how much faster they are than women. I think young men today, if they heard this, their heads would blow up. But they know it's true. They're not allowed to even think those thoughts, let alone speak those thoughts. If I was going to run a young man academy, I would say, boys, you're faster than these women are. You're stronger than they are. That's why you have to do these things. You have to do them because you're that much more physically powerful. And of course, you can't really expect men to be men unless the women step up and do their half too, right? When it comes right down to it, when a man gets a door for a woman, or walks on the street side of the sidewalk for a woman, or opens a car door for a woman, does any of these little things, puts their bags in the overhead compartment for women, does all these things that require, or at least are based on a history of requiring greater physical strength. Those are acts of courtesy, and they should be replied to with acts of courtesy and acts of affection. It's not a transaction. You don't put somebody's bag up in the overhead compartment for her in order to get her phone number or in order to have her owe you something. But, the fact of the matter is, it's just what kind people do. And I think the final thing I'll say on this, because ultimately this is really what it comes down to, is I think you have to show them, Aloe, I think you have to show people, men and women both, how much better life is with, let's just say, modified traditional roles. And the only reason I throw the modified in there is because I absolutely, certainly, without question, do believe that women should have the right to pursue any career they want to. Needless to say, they should have full access to the human experience. Needless to say, and for jobs that they do equally as men, they should get paid the same as men. Needless to say, and they do. You simply can't say, I've got two transcriptionists here, and one's a man and one's a woman. I'm going to pay the man 30% more than the woman. That never happens. It is true men make more money than women do, but if you look at I think Glenn Reynolds at Insupun had a graph of fatalities, workplace fatalities in terms of accidents, And the number of workplace fatalities in terms of on-the-job accidents that kill people, I think the number was 93 or 94% of all workplace fatalities are men, and 7% are women. Maybe it's even more than that. But let's say it's 95.5. It's pretty close to that. If 95% of the total workplace accidents kill men, and women are making up half the workforce, then what you're really figuring out is men are doing more dangerous jobs than women. And since they're doing more dangerous jobs than women, they should get paid more money for it. That's what this income disparity thing's about. So look, the dating situation in LA is a little more advanced than it is in the rest of the country. And when I say advanced, I mean it's crazier. And when I say advanced, I don't mean it's better. I mean it's crazier sooner than the rest of the country. And so what I can tell you is what the dynamic in LA is that the women are angry and the men are weak. And that's why everybody's so miserable. Weak men make women angry, and angry women make men weak. And somebody's got to break this cycle, and somebody's got to stop this kind of spiral. And the people that have to break it, the people that have to break this cycle are the men. So I have to tell you, and I certainly don't mean I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but frankly, when I see these men's group things, well, we're going to have a men's group, and we're going to talk about men's rights, and we're going to talk about all these things that it's like, honestly, yeah, we're going to go out in the jungle, and we're going to beat drums, and we're going to sit in a circle, and we're going to live like hunters, and tell campfire stories, and smear our faces with paint, and get in touch with our maleness. And I said, why do you want to do that? And there's because women have completely emasculated us. It's like, well, they may have emasculated you, but they haven't emasculated me. Nobody gets to do that to me. No one gets to take away my pride. I don't care what feminists have to say about me. It bounces off of me like water off the back of a duck. If I run into somebody who says, hey, women need men like a fish needs a bicycle, then I say, enjoy your bicycle, or enjoy your lack of bicycle, fishy. Knock yourself out, kid. But that's not how society's going. Women are more and more and more unhappy. And the reason they're more and more and more unhappy is because there are fewer and fewer and fewer real men. And I'm telling you, as somebody who's been out in the dating scene out there, genuine strength, actual strength, which is not strutting, and it's not arrogance, and it's certainly not violence or puffery or machoism, but just genuine quiet strength and confidence, is just irresistible. It's irresistible, and it should be irresistible. So that's where I would go with it. If I were to, since your question was, how would you reverse the growing horde of mewing sackless beta males, I would show them and tell them how much more fun life is if you're not one of those guys. In other words, if you're saying, what do you do with this crowd of losers, Bill? I'd show them how much more fun it is to be a winner than a loser. Any questions? It's infinitely better to be a winner than a loser. Infinitely better. Just takes a little bit of courage. And courage and confidence are things that can be learned. They really can be learned, really learned. You can learn them just like you learn anything else. It's little steps. You do little things that you're afraid to do, and you do it, and maybe you get shot down, or maybe you don't. And then the one time you don't get shot down, that's like evidence. It's like, oh, well, it worked out better than I thought. And then you try it again. It gives you a little more confidence. You do it again, you get shot down, maybe you don't. More evidence, more confidence. And then all of a sudden you're on this spiral, this upward spiral instead of a downward spiral. And you find rather quickly that the more confidence you have, the more of a positive reaction you get, and then things happen very quickly. I can't put my finger on it, but it was probably about 4 or 5 years ago for me where I really kind of hit that critical mass of having a certain amount of confidence and poise in myself, which wasn't dependent on anybody's opinion of me. I just didn't care. I just liked the work I was doing enough, and I liked who I was enough. That when you reach a certain level, then magical things happen. Then you realize, holy cow, you're talking to a guy right now who wore turtleneck sweaters and calculators on his belt all through high school and watched cheerleaders like cross the other side of the hall so they didn't have to be on the same side of the hall as me. So I know where I'm coming from on this one. All of a sudden, you may not look different, you may not dress different, you may not seem different, but you emit a different kind of light. And people who used to ignore you aren't ignoring you anymore. And you walk into a room and you realize, without saying anything, you say, oh my God, a lot of people, that chick is looking at me. You're damn right she is. And that raises your confidence even higher, and off you go. So, yeah, it's the same thing. It would be, guys, it's better to be strong than to be weak. The payoff is better. The work is harder. As with everything else, what do you want? Do you want the reward, or do you want the ease? Because if you want the reward, it's easy. It's not easy, rather. You will get the reward. So anyway, that's where you go. Just I could do it, and I might just have to just do an internet course on it. I bet I could put some DVDs together, make a ton of money. Write that down, Des. A ton of money. DVD, Manhood Academy, and why don't you just go ahead and call U-Haul right now and rent an 18-foot truck to haul the money away in, because that's let's just get all that just taken care of out of the way. All right, moving on here.